Welcome back to another episode of Hail Yes, a Michigan football and basketball podcast by the Detroit Free Press. I'm Andrew Burkle, of course, joined by our Michigan beat writer, Tony Garcia. And Tony, we are recording this after a rivalry victory for Michigan, 31-20 over Michigan State. Yeah, I mean, just another taking care of business victory. It feels like we've talked about the same game multiple times now, including last week, where Michigan just dominated the second half, not a ton of drama, and moving on to the next week here, right?
Yeah, I want to focus on that not a lot of drama part. That was fabulous. After each of the last 3 years, had to write about something in the tunnel, had to write about...
Mini round of applause, yes.
Sign stealing, had to write about shoving on the field, and then a fracas at the middle of the field. Nothing this year. It was marvelous. It was glorious. Job well done. There were a lot of penalties, certainly on Michigan State's side. They had 12, Michigan had 6. But, I mean, a lot of those were kind of like pre-snap penalties, right? Like they were...
Yeah, I was going to say, they weren't like diving for somebody's knees or a shove after the play. There was the one costly personal foul Michigan State had. After the touchdown, they had one. But it was always like, it wasn't like, oh, that's nasty. It was just like, okay. It just didn't really...
Going a little too long. And
yeah, it was a pretty clean game for these two standards, for sure.
Yeah. For the standard of this rivalry, I think is the key there. But yeah, no, Michigan dominating on the ground. The defense had one drive in the first half where it really sort of lost contain in the run game. And that was the first touchdown. And then late, there was a cover, which I guess helped us out with the picks, or at least me out with the picks. And outside of that, it was, I mean, there was a lot of punts. There was an interception, or not an interception, excuse me, a fumble early, right? That really set the tone. And it was kind of by this game standard, kind of boring, right? Michigan just, I think you said it best. So like they took care of business. There wasn't really a ton of doubt about which way this was going. I mean, Michigan could never quite put them away until that late Jordan Marshall run. But yeah, I mean, in a rivalry, as they say, can go anyway, right? And you got to throw the records out the window. I mean, if you're going on the road and you're winning by double digits, and the backup quarterback's in and you're up 18 points, you've done your job. And Michigan did that.
Yeah, no doubt. And it was kind of again, we like to say this term, but kind of like one of those weirder games where Michigan felt like they were totally in control. But at the same time, you know, one thing could go the wrong way. Maybe Michigan State was back in the game, and Michigan State, as we highlighted pre-show, it felt like it was the Spartans who were in the headlines after this game because of everything surrounding Jonathan Smith and, you know, some really bad coaching penalties. Like the sequence comes to mind when I really felt like, okay, Michigan's winning this game was when it was the catch down the sidelines. Omari Kelly, you know, he couldn't really tell if he caught it, couldn't really tell if he didn't catch it. Smith and his team couldn't decide if they're going to challenge it. They move back 5 yards, so they delay a game. Then they take a full start. Michigan's just getting 10 free yards there. That was like the example I keep coming to mind, where it's like, hey, Michigan's not committing that kind of those kind of mistakes. Michigan State is, and they're just kind of getting out of the way. And that's a really good thing for a college football program, is if they're going to let the other teams beat themselves. I mean, in this current Big Ten, you're going to be able to win a lot of games doing that. And that's kind of how I felt. It wasn't like, oh, this is the one that's going to go on Bryce Underwood or Sherrone Moore's resume as a great win, you know, clean performance, but they didn't need to. And in a game in East Lansing, that's more than okay.
Yeah, on this day, it's plenty okay. I do think that this is something that I'm going to kind of put a pin in as far as the Bryce Underwood storyline of this season. Because, I mean, if you had told me that he was going to go 8 of 17 for 86 yards and rush for 26 yards and a touchdown, but not throw for any touchdowns, complete fewer than 50% of his passes, not pass for more than 100 yards against this terrible defense, I would have said, like, I mean, I would have worried that maybe he got hurt in the third quarter or something, or left. Like I wouldn't have known how that could play out. And I think, I mean, you understand why, right? Like, I mean, Michigan started leaning on him in the run game. They racked up 276 yards, although a lot of that, like, more than 25% of it, or right around 25% of it, was the one Jordan Marshall run at the very end of the game. And so really for the most part, they were still over 200 even before they blew the doors open with 3 minutes left. But before that, Michigan just could not generate a pass game downfield. They had 2 passes that were completed more than like 9 yards downfield all game, both to Andrew Marsh, one in the first half, one in the second half. And I think they realized that, like, look, if we don't turn this ball over, there's just no way for Michigan State to beat us. And we're just gonna keep this thing on the ground. And now, ironically, Justice Haynes actually did turn it over once, right? Like the fumble, even though he had a fantastic game, 26 carries, 152 yards and a touchdown. And that was one of those times where Michigan State drove inside Michigan's 30 on 2 drives in a row when they were down by 11, both times in the fourth quarter. and Michigan's defense just came up huge. One was Jimmy Rolder, who was kind of the player of the game with, 10 tackles, sack. What else? The pass breakup as well.
Well, he had that fumble recovery when he was diving out of bounds.
The fumble recovery. I was like, there was one more that I was trying to say before the pass breakup. Yeah, the fumble recovery on Brandon Hellman's forced fumble, less than a minute into the game, and then the PBU on fourth down in the flat. And then the next sequence, MSU tries to go hurry up on 4th and 1 or maybe less than 1. And Childs just gets absolutely stuffed at the line by Derek Moore and TJ Metcalf, I think it was. So, but back to, I mean, those were really like the game deciding sequences. But Michigan realized, like, the way our defense is playing, we don't need to pass it. We can just run it. But the problem was, it didn't look like they really could pass it very well had they needed to. I think that's a subtle but important distinction. It's saying, like, oh, we don't need to pass to win. It's like, but if you do need to pass, can you win?
I think there's two schools of thoughts here. Is first of all, you have Underwood, who, like we've said all year long, the growth isn't always linear, right? Like, he had his best game against Washington. The week before that against USC, he had maybe one of his worst games. And then against Michigan State, he's not playing as well. So you could maybe point to that a little bit for why the offense might struggle. But Michigan State's defense, especially over the middle, has been a disaster all year long. So there should have been opportunities there. Maybe you give them credit for an adjustment. I don't know. The second thing that I kind of, is a bigger concern if you're a Michigan fan is this seems to be Sharon Moore's tendency dating back to when he served as the interim in the Penn State game. And that famously worked, right? When he ran the ball, you probably remember how many straight times did he run the ball against Penn State? And that went 32 straight times to beat the Nittany Lions, right? Then we had last year when, of course, it was a mishmash of quarterbacks and really basically all season long, the tendency seemed to be take the ball out of the quarterback's hand and run, right? And now I think that seems to be when the game gets tight or if he doesn't want to, like you said, we can win this game if we don't turn the ball over, right? Does that get to the point where you're being too conservative sometimes? And we've seen it a little bit in the USC game and in the Oklahoma game where it's just going to be hard to keep up playing like that against an explosive offense. Michigan State's not that. They let them shoot themselves in the foot time and time again, and they did. And you can win 9 or 10 games a year in the Big Ten. Maybe I should say 8, 9, or 10 games like Iowa does every year just by playing that way, right? But the ceiling is maybe still in question. That being said, it's probably going to come down to this Ohio State game this year, and who wants to bet against Michigan against Ohio State right now? So maybe this is the best path forward for this program now, but certainly something we have to keep our eye on as any time a program is winning games with less than 100 yards passing.
Yeah, no, I think that was really, really well said. And the other best news of the Ohio State game is it's at home. Not that Michigan has not proven in 2022 and in 2024 with everything on the line or as the greatest of underdogs that it can go into Columbus and win. But when we're talking about Bryce Underwood, I mean, these road and home splits are just kind of separating themselves more and more. Sure. Oklahoma was, you give him a pass for the first one, right? I think that's fair. He hadn't been in the scenario. Then Nebraska.
He was decent on the road in Nebraska, right?
He was okay. And then USC, not good. And now Michigan State, not good. And now you can say like, oh, well, he wasn't asked to do much, but you shouldn't be running it 27 times and passing it twice in the second half. If you're just trying, they're going to say we were just trying to get out of there with a win. But do you really not think that Michigan has to keep him around too, right? Like there are two parts of it. And I'm not saying Bryce is going to leave, but if this happens 4 more times where he throws it 2 times in the second half and say they do lose one of those games, they don't go to the playoff, he's not being trusted to win it in the big game. I'm sure they'll say look, we thought this was our best path this year. Next year, we're going to ride or die with you. Look at our run game. There are reasons. You can understand why Michigan's doing it. But there is, in this day and age of the portal, you do have to placate a little bit, not to the detriment of winning and losing. But you got to know the math. You got to understand there's ramifications for every decision. And now on the road, he's 44 of 87 passing, so 50.6% completions, averaging 6.2 yards a pass. At home, he's completing almost 70% of his passes, 8.9 yards a pass. His quarterback rating on ESPN at home is 157. On the road, it's 108.
It's growing, right?
He's averaging less than 4 yards a carry on the road, more than 6 yards a carry at home. And you have to keep in mind, 2 of those home games are Central Michigan and New Mexico, right? So it's kind of buoyed by games against non-Power 5 teams. If you look at the 6 games against power opponents, there hasn't been the The Washington game was probably his best. And then Wisconsin was fine, but Wisconsin is terrible.
Don't you think it's kind of like exaggerated too? Because Michigan has this super unique schedule that you did some good reporting on before the season. Found out they've never played home, road, home, road, home, road. It's never happened in Michigan football history, right? And I feel like it's kind of added to this unique development curve for Underwood, right? Where it's like there's not a lot of momentum building, particularly because he's playing so much better at home, right? It's kind of like up, down, up, down, up, down, to a degree, Look, like 5 years from now, or maybe let's say 3 years from now, when Bryce Underwood is a senior, right? And he's playing, or maybe he's a junior, whatever. Maybe he's a rookie in the NFL, whatever it is. I'm not going to look back at this game and be like, oh, Bryce Underwood played bad. I don't really think he played that bad. He didn't play good, but it wasn't like that was the lasting memory of my game here. It just seems like that there's a lack of trust there at times. And I don't know if that's because Michigan and the program has to like overly trust a quarterback. I mean, look, this is the same team who didn't necessarily always trust their quarterback, JJ McCarthy, who got drafted in the first round. Right. So maybe it's more so a program thing where it's like developing that trust over time. It takes a little bit longer or sometimes too long. I don't really think that like Underwood is, I'm not going to like have that thought in my brain of, oh, Bryce played bad in this game. His stats are bad. He didn't play good, but it wasn't like they were, giving him easy opportunities to rack up a bunch of yards or take chances really either.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And I would expect, we're not really going to talk about the game coming up, but a home game against Purdue feels like a real get right spot for him. Like I wouldn't be surprised if he passed for a couple touchdowns and threw for 250, maybe his first 300 game. Like although I don't know if the weather permitting, we'll see what that looks like. And it's not that he played like so badly, but he did not play well. I think that's fair to say. Like Pro Football Focus has a stat that's called, or the two separate stats. There are big time throws and turnover worthy plays. Against Washington, he had 3 big time throws, which are like throws that are not reasonably expected to be made, that are completed, that like change the game. And turnover worthy plays are exactly what they sound like. Like maybe it does not end up in an interception or in a fumble, but this should have been, or this very well could have been. Against MSU, he had no big time throws and 2 turnover worthy plays. I mean, that's in a game where they were trying to like take the air out of the ball and not let that happen, for there to be none of the upside and 2 of the concerning plays. Obviously, we haven't talked about it. The game, like you said, back-to-back penalties on Michigan State is what determined it in your mind. I think 2 things can be true. Michigan, I think, was going to win this game anyway, but it was when Bryce Underwood fumbled on 3rd and 8 in Michigan State territory. MSU recovered, but then Michigan State was called for offsides. Now, some angles, it looks like he was lined up in the neutral zone. Others, it looks like he timed it perfectly. I will say in live time from the press box, when you have someone like sort of like doing like those jump starts and like getting a real sprint ahead, it did look like he was offsides in live time from where I was sitting. But after a replay, it looked like it wasn't. And I'm not an official, so it's more up to an official to get that right. And then 3 Michigan gets new life. 3 plays later, Haynes, touchdown, 17-7. And it was never inside of 2 possessions from there. It was really once that happened, Michigan was like, all right, we're not dropping back and passing anymore. Like with this, like we are just running this. We can run through them and win this game, and that's what we're gonna do.
You have no doubt that offsides was a huge game-changing play one way or the other. One of those where if fans saw the angle on Michigan's side and then it wasn't called offsides, then you would have had them upset. And if Michigan State fans, what ended up happening, they were going to be upset. Truly bang play. And I don't really blame Underwood for that fumble necessarily, where he was getting blasted from perfectly timed blitz, right? But still, again, not great, not necessarily terrible. So with that, let's move to a quick break. We want to talk about some big picture questions moving forward for Michigan quickly, get our picks, and then we're actually going to talk some Michigan basketball here as well. So stick with us through the break. We will be right back. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for sticking with us for that quick break there. We want to talk about just kind of the state of college football, because it's in a weird spot right now where 2 of the top dogs in the entire country are Ohio State and Indiana. Michigan, I wouldn't put them in that class, but they're certainly in contention for the college football playoff. But week to week, it feels like some of those top teams are not going to get tested in the same way that the SEC teams are getting tested right now. I want to go through the Oklahoma's last schedule run here. So they played Kent State in their their fifth game. Since then, they've played Texas, South Carolina, lost to Ole Miss. Now they play at Tennessee and at Alabama versus Missouri and LSU to finish the season. I mean, this is an Oklahoma team that beat Michigan, right? I'd be surprised if they can win or if they don't lose at least 2 of those games, right? I mean, it's just such a constant, never-ending buzzsaw. Then you compare that to what Ole Miss just went through. They played Tulane, who's pretty good. Then they played LSU, Washington State, who gave them a tougher game than expected, at Georgia, and then at Oklahoma. Now they play South Carolina, who almost just beat Alabama. Then you compare that to what Michigan's going through. And this is no knock on Michigan. Ohio State's not that much different. Ohio State's not going to get tested till the final week of the season in all likelihood. I mean, they played Texas in week 1 against a team who now didn't look ready at the time, right? So Michigan played at USC and lost. Okay, they play Washington. That looks like a good win. Okay, we'll give them that. At Michigan State, no Big Ten wins. At versus Purdue, no Big Ten wins. At Northwestern, at Wrigley Field in front of a packed Michigan crowd. At Maryland, and then Ohio State. I mean, it's just not even comparable, right? And it's just one of those years, right? You got to be thankful, and it's got to be constantly brought up, and not as a knock on Michigan in any way, shape, or form. Just how important that is towards Michigan's chances to be in this conversation, right?
And that's what we were saying all offseason, right? Like 3 of their first 6 games were among 3 of their 4 toughest games. It was at Oklahoma, it was at USC, it was at Nebraska. They had to find a way to win one of those games, and then they could be 4-2. They could rip off 5 in a row, and then it would all come down to the Ohio State game. I mean, I think I said that those exact words on this podcast and wrote about it and then picked it. And that's exactly what's happening.
It's playing out exactly how we thought, which is so rarely the occasion, right?
Yeah, no, I don't know what to do with my hands. It's surprising, but it's because you knew Michigan State wasn't going to be any good. You knew Purdue wasn't going to be any good. Northwestern is better than expected, but still limited. And then Maryland, I mean, I still think that will be maybe the trickiest of the bunch just because it's a road game, kind of sleepy, trap spot. I mean, I've said this as well. Even in the years where Michigan was like at the cream of the crop in the Big Ten, multiple times they've had to play Maryland at Maryland the week before Ohio State, and some of those were dicey. One of them was 30-24. It was a really tight game, and so it's just a weird way that the Big Ten is shaken out. And also, I mean, like Ohio State, it looked like at the beginning of the season they were going to have the Penn State game coming up this week. Now Penn State is terrible, but you knew Michigan. Michigan, it looked like they were avoiding Penn State. Now that wasn't really avoiding anything, but no Indiana, no Oregon, Illinois. Who knows how good they are, right? I think it's officially time for me to get off that bandwagon. I tried as long as I could. And their offense is good, and they're good at home, but that defense is just terrible against really good teams. And so it's certainly not the SEC, and it's why that there's such a cluster, of teams with one loss in the Big Ten, and why this last month is actually going to be really, really fun. So you got USC, Oregon, Iowa, and Michigan all with one loss. Indiana and Ohio State have no losses. If Indiana runs the table, which it looks like it should, Indiana will be one of the teams in the mix. Then it comes down to Ohio State and those other 4, right? There's 5 other teams. If Ohio State beats Michigan and runs the table, obviously it's Indiana, Ohio State, which a lot of people think. But Michigan could win that game. And then if Michigan has one loss, Ohio State has one loss, Michigan would have the head-to-head tiebreaker over Ohio State, obviously. And then it would come down to what those other 3 teams do. So USC, Oregon, and Iowa, they all play each other. USC plays Oregon and Iowa. Oregon plays Iowa and USC. And so obviously Iowa plays USC and Oregon. If one of those teams is able to sweep that matchup, then if they don't falter elsewhere, they will be the team representing the second representative in the Big Ten championship game. Not just because USC has the head-to-head over Michigan, but the next tiebreaker, which we wrote about on Freep.com, is sort of like the strength of record of your common opponents. And while it's a blessing right now that Michigan is playing some Big Ten teams that aren't winning a lot, it's also a detriment long term because your strength of Big Ten schedule, if you are playing just Michigan State and Purdue, they're 0-10 right now in the Big Ten, and you're going to get to beat them. But it does eventually matter who you beat, is what they tried to do with that tiebreaker.
Couldn't you argue that Michigan's clearest path to the college football playoff is beating Ohio State. And best case scenario would be not even having to play that extra game in the Big Ten championship game. You're 10-2. You're a clean 10-2, ending the season with a win over Ohio State, and you don't even have to mess around with Indianapolis at all. That's the sad part about the Big Ten championship game is there really is not. Now, of course, they could improve their stock even more if they go and beat Indiana. Is that maybe that gets them a home playoff game, right? But outside of that, I don't know. The extra rest and not even having to play that game almost feels like the best case scenario. So ultimately, it comes down to one thing and one thing only, and that's beat Ohio State. And it's kind of a cliche, right? But this year, it's not just the years long rivalry and everything that goes into that. It's the actual college football implications that go with it.
We're like a train in like first gear, just slowly heading down the tracks, right? Like everybody sees where this is going. It is now up to Michigan to make sure it does not get too far ahead of itself. It can't think like we do, like fans do, like, oh, like this is all already a done deal. No, this week at home against Purdue, that's a done deal. I mean, it's almost impossible to see a path for Purdue victory, right? But Northwestern is feisty, right? And if you get a little sloppy with the ball on the ground, there's a chance there. I still think stylistically, Michigan matches up so well with Northwestern. That's a team that wants to run it against you. Michigan's not going to give up the run. It's a team that is able to. I mean, Michigan might have a little bit of trouble scoring against them. I think that'll probably be a bit of a lower scoring game, but I just don't see Northwestern being able to score more than maybe 13 points. And I think Michigan might get up to 24 or something, 27. But then Maryland. I mean, we've already discussed it. So I think everybody wants it to the Michigan-Ohio State game to always matter at the end of the year, not just like last year where Michigan is going to try to play spoiler, and then they did, but then they didn't really spoil anything because Ohio State still won the Natty. I guess they spoiled that day in that moment. I mean, and Michigan fans will. I wonder where that one ranks in terms of the four wins. I think you could I think 2021's got to be the top, right? Because it was the first time 10 years had to do it. I think it might be in order, right? Then 22 might be next because they needed it to go to the Big Ten title game and they hadn't won in Columbus in 2 years. Then 23 is third because that was back at home, but you also had to have it to go to the Big Ten title game. Maybe you wouldn't have made the CFP because that was still 4 teams that year. And so everything was still on the line that year. And then last year it was all fun and good and great, but it was not like the stakes were so much lower. But in a way, it was probably like the most satisfying, but the least impactful, obviously. And so, I mean, just 4 classics in a row, right? Like, I mean, they've just been so great these last 4 years. And your mind just starts spinning when you think about the fact that 11-0 Ohio State could be facing 9-2 Michigan, college football playoff on the line, Big Ten title game berth on the line. That would be a credit to Michigan for keeping the train on the tracks, another train analogy, and staying in the fight that long.
Big locomotive podcast this week.
Oh, we shouldn't be with the Boilermakers. Yeah, that might be a bad omen.
All right. Speaking of Purdue, we didn't want to completely disrespect them. So we're going to talk a little bit about this matchup against Michigan, where the Wolverines are a 20.5 point favorite. I'll get to our standings for the picks in just a second after this game, but I had a natural transition there, Tony. I had to take it. So let's talk a little Purdue and Michigan, 20.5 point spread. I mean, that's kind of says it all, right? Nothing crazy. And like you said, it's going to take basically a miracle for Purdue to win this one, right?
Yeah. There's not a ton that they do well. Frankly, they've lost 6 games in a row. Their only wins this year are against Ball State and Southern Illinois. They got hammered by Notre Dame, hammered by Illinois. They were tight against Minnesota. They were tight last week against Rutgers. I think Barry Odom called it like he was like, oh, that was just like a gut wrencher. And it's like just kind of a funny vision, like 2-5 against 3-4 and like fighting for the toilet bowl and not even a real bowl. But now they got Michigan, Ohio State, at Washington, and then Indiana. They're not winning another game this year. Purdue will be going 2-10. And so it's just a tough scene. They got a couple quarterbacks that they like to use. Malachi Singleton is sort of more the runner. Ryan Brown has been okay, a little more athletic than you actually thought at first, but 8 touchdowns, 7 picks. There's nothing to see there. Devin Mockabee feels like he's been their back for, it feels like 15 years. And every year, I'm going to go to his stats. It feels like every year he has the exact same stat line, and like he's on pace for it. And it's slightly regressed each year. So in 22, he had 968 for 9 touchdowns. That was the year Purdue went to the Big Ten title game. But then 23, 807 yards, 6 touchdowns. Last year, just under 700 yards, 4 touchdowns. This year, he's at 521 and 4 touchdowns. So call it another 75. That's about 75 a game. So if he does that 4 more times, he'll be right around 806 touchdowns. It's just the same thing every year. Nobody to really of note in the passing game. Michael Jackson III is their leading receiver, and Nitro Tuggle, who has one of the best names in the Big Ten, has 4 receiving touchdowns. He's a threat in the red zone. But I think that's real. I think that's really all the preview that is needed. Purdue is not a good team. There's nothing that they do that scares you. Michigan is at home, so I will just lead into the pick. I will take Michigan to cover the 20.5.
As will I. And if there's no other reason to listen to Haley S., at least listen so when Nitro Tuggle catches a pass at the big house and you're standing around all your friends, you can sound cool. Like you know who Nitro Tuggle actually is and have watched a single second of Purdue football this year when you say his name.
Well, he was a Georgia transfer, so he came in from Georgia, and he was kind of like one of their guys, and but I like that they were excited about, and that name is elite.
Oh, top elite recruit on NCAA football, the video game type name. You like, ooh, I'm going out to this guy. All right, last week was another bad week for yourself, Tony. Just going back to the standings, we are now tied up, baby. I've hawked you down like a cornerback against a slow running back, baby. So I went 3-2 to get to 21 and 23. You went 2-3 to get to 21 and 23 as well. And I'm actually going to. I think I got the wrong side of the Michigan State game last week. You had MSU, and you got the backdoor cover from Mr. Backdoor Cover himself, Jonathan Smith.
I did. Although Michigan was they were just trying to run the game out first. So I think Michigan hit the first backdoor cover, and like that was an 11-point game much of the way. But they did hit a big run, and so I was like, oh, like I didn't feel like I deserved to lose that one. Like MSU was pretty tight the whole way. But that's what happens when you bet on the bad team that you know isn't going to win, but you just think they cover.
They're holding on for dear.
In 7 seconds left, that touchdown made me smile in the press box. I mean, obviously our pick is the first thing. It's all I care about. Is the first thing I thought about.
Hope you're happy, man.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was a perfect thread the needle, right? Like everyone, Michigan won. Everyone all of our readers got to be happy, and then they covered, and so I got to be happy. I guess you're the only one who was sad. But no, it was all good. That Oklahoma pick was just terrible.
Hey, it happens. All right, Penn State at Ohio State. In preseason, you would have thought this one would be 2.5 points. Instead, it is 20.5 points. Ohio State is the same amount of favorite over Penn State as that Michigan is over Purdue. It's insane what's happened to this Penn State program this year. Who are you picking in this one?
Yeah, I mean, just based on name brand, it feels like, I mean, that is so many points. It's almost like, just give me the points, close your eyes, hold your breath, and just get out of there some way inside of 3 scores. But Ohio State loves to run it up on Penn State. Penn State is not going to be able to score on Ohio State, maybe at all, like maybe once. And I think 3 of my 23 losses this year are fading Ohio State. I have learned my lesson. If I'm wrong, it will be going the other way. Buckeyes to win big at home.
Penn State is not good. We know that. I don't think they're Purdue bad. So I'm just going to take the points and hold on for dear life. I don't think Penn State has any chance of winning this game, but it's also similar to what the last game provided for Michigan State against Michigan. It was their last hoorah for the guys in the locker room, right? It was the last chance to really rally the troops, and play your best football. Michigan State did not do that. But I think they played better than their floor had been, Michigan State. So if Penn State plays better than their floor, which has been pretty darn low, I think they can at least cover this game against Ohio State. And you look like you wanted to add something.
No. They lost by. They fought hard at Iowa, losing by 1 at Iowa. But I feel like that after the coach was kind of their last stand. Now they're 3-4. They're 0-4 in the Big Ten. But who knows?
Maybe. I mean, yeah, exactly. We'll keep it moving. But I think that this game is still a nationally televised game. A lot of people are going to be tuning in for, and it's got that big game feel still. So I think that they can get up one last time, and then it's curtains after that. So, all right, let's move on to some SEC football where Vanderbilt I feel like that we've picked Vandy every single week on this podcast. Who would have thought that? They're one of the most interesting teams in the country. We're not just doing it because we love Vandy or anything like that. They're constantly in interesting storylines here. This week, they're a surprising underdog at Texas, 2.5 points on the road. Do the Longhorns get this one, Tony?
Well, if you want to know why we've picked Vanderbilt, it's because they played Alabama, LSU at night. They hosted game day against Missouri, and now they're going to Texas. I mean, that is the difference in the Big Ten and the SEC scheduling, right? I had Texas down here early, but I realized scared money don't make no money, and that was a scared pick. That was a logo pick. That was a Texas is due pick. There's smoke around Sarkisian going to the NFL. Arch has been terrible. Pavia has been fantastic. It feels like impossible to believe that Vanderbilt is going to just keep running the table. Technically, Texas is not dead yet in the CFP, but I mean, after Vanderbilt, they then got to play Georgia and then sort of a down week against Arkansas. Then they got A&M, so good luck there. But I mean, Oklahoma was banged up when we saw Texas against them. Certainly Mateer was. Texas won ugly against Kentucky, and they should have lost last week to Mississippi State. Maybe that juice sort of propels them into this week. I think they flatline here. And so I'm going to take, this is what they do at Vanderbilt, like that VU thing. So Commodores.
Almost looks kind of inappropriate, but luckily we're not.
It's not the shocker. It's not the shocker.
Okay, I'm going to go with Texas in this one because I feel like they're begging you to bet on Vandy, and I've fallen for this sucker trick too many times and saying, it doesn't matter. I just want to ride with the team. First of all, like you said, Texas is still in this. Secondly, you just highlighted one of the reasons why I want to pick against Vandy. I mean, they've gone through the murderer's row here. And at some point, you have to wonder, will it catch up to this team? They kind of scraped by 17-10 in last week against Missouri, who's a good team. Don't get me wrong. Another great win for Vanderbilt. And Clark Leah, how do you say his last name? I always forget.
I think it's Lee.
Clark Lee. Yes.
I know it's L-E-A, but it's Lee.
Yeah.
Clark Lee.
Yeah. Who's going to be the talk of, all these SEC schools who are hiring soon in the near future. But I think they kind of just run out a little bit of magic here because that murderer's row has been brutal. And if there's anything we've learned in the SEC this year, it's that maybe there isn't a top dog like there is in the Big Ten with Ohio State and Indiana, but anybody can beat anybody in this meaty middle section of the conference. So I'm going to go with Texas to really create some buzz and make a lot of people mad that they're like, how is Texas still ranked this high? How is Texas still in this? I can just totally see it now with the win over Vandy here. Okay, let's move on to two more games here. We got Oklahoma at Tennessee. Oklahoma's another team we've picked a lot of this year. The Volunteers are 3.5 point favorite at home against Oklahoma. And I'm going to go back. I'll go first here. I'm just going to go with the Sooners to get a bounce back win after a brutal loss against Ole Miss last week. They've been playing a little bit better since that Texas loss. And Ole Miss is legit. So they went right down to the wire with them. And I'm still struggling to figure out, decide if Tennessee is legit. So I know I like John Mateer, even though he's not playing 100%. And I think they're going to redeem that loss last week against Ole Miss.
Yeah, I would have. I just know. I mean, the 3.5 on this game, and then the 2.5 on the other game, and I'm on the wrong side of both. I'm taking so I'm taking Tennessee to cover 3.5, and I'm taking Vanderbilt when I'm only getting 2.5. And both of these games are going to end in walk-off field goals. I already know it. But I'm still going Tennessee. I feel like Oklahoma Mateer is not quite right. They are fading fast. It feels like, Venables has a good defense, obviously, but it feels like their fastball, like teams are starting to sit fastball now, and really just like when they're trying to tee up all this pressure. And Joey Aguilar has really progressed this year. I mean, he was good early, and there was like a little bit of a lull in the middle, but I think he's turning the corner again. Certainly last week against Kentucky, who was just a terrible team. Mark Stoops they got to get him out of there. But I just think it's a good chance at home to keep the college football playoff alive. They're going to be rocking, and I think they can win this one. It's not going to be as lopsided as this, but it might be like by 10, right? Like it might be a field goal, then it's a field goal game, then a late touchdown to put it over, and then Oklahoma has to drive the length and go for it late and just can't get enough. So I got Tennessee to cover in this one.
All right, last but not least, but maybe actually probably definitely least, besides the Michigan game, the worst game we have on here, USC at Nebraska. The Trojans a 6.5 point favorite, and I think we both have USC here, right, against a Nebraska team that just is not that good.
Yeah, I almost want to go flip flop and take Nebraska.
This is gamesmanship from you trying to get an edge on me in the standings because you want to get a flip result. I say what you're doing. I know you don't think that Nebraska is going to win this game. You call them loser DNA.
I don't think that. I don't.
You constantly call them loser DNA and say you. I know you don't believe that.
That's all fair. And USC is coming off the bye, so fine. I will stick with USC. But it's another one of those numbers, right? 6.5. It's like, oh, they can win by a touchdown, and then they win by 4, or they win by 6. And Nebraska. And here's the other thing. Nebraska's season, I mean, while they're not going to the CFP or something, it's not dead yet, right? Like they still only have a couple of losses.
Their record is definitely better than I thought it was when I'm like, oh,
exactly.
Wow.
They're 6-2.
They're kind of still in this.
Yeah,
weirdly,
no, they're still in the mix. They have 2 losses in the Big Ten, so they're out of it there. And they don't have any good wins, so they can't reach the CFP.
They're very much in Outback Bowl territory.
Oh, they got Outback Bowl written all over them. They have lost 26 straight games to ranked teams. And this is, I mean, it's a perfect spot, like a 23rd, 24th ranked team. I mean, they are going to be fired up. This is their last big stand. And see, I almost talked myself into the flip. I'm not. Just they are losers, and they will always be losers. So as scared as I am of these losers, it's still USC.
All right, Tony, let's wrap the picks up here, and let's talk some college basketball real quick. We got to be out of here in a few minutes. I got an appointment I got to run to, but we're fully back in the football basketball swing of things here. So what's on your mind from a basketball standpoint?
Just how much better Michigan looked. Shocking with Adai Mara and Morris Johnson Jr. available. I mean, it was still a 2-point game, much like the game was against Cincinnati, but St. John's is more talented than Cincinnati. Michigan played them essentially in their backyard at MSG. They still turned it over like 22, 23 times, which has got to be addressed. But Mara and Johnson were fantastic. Mara was like 13, 5, and 4 in 24 minutes. Johnson, I think 16 and 8 in 22 minutes. Late in overtime, they both had moments where it's like, that's what we've been hearing about them. Mara sort of corrals he goes up and over like 4 defenders, grabs it, keeps the ball high. How often do you tell someone who's like 7'3", like, don't bring it back down where all the little ants, the 6'8" ants, if you're 7'3", can swat at it. Grab it, keep it high, and he just went up with the left and flushed it. Then another one, he corralled the ball along a baseline. He hit sort of like a sideways, like underneath pocket pass, would have made Sean Windsor very happy had he seen it, and just found the axle for the flush. And then Morez Johnson Jr., Michigan's up 6, few minutes left to go in overtime. He closes out. He doesn't do like the flyby, where you leave your feet, but he shuffles his feet. This dude with like a sweet Italian last name who is escaping me, from St. John's. He pumps, he sidesteps, he fires. Johnson swats it, grabs it in the air, crosses him over, hits 3 dribbles from like 3/4 court, and just crams it to go up 8. And that was kind of all she wrote. Well, actually, St. John's did tie it up, went on an 8-0 run over the next 2 minutes, but it gave him some breathing room for the time being. And then Yaxel's, even though it's only 2 games, I feel like we're going to be able to say Yaxel is Yaxel, which is what you expect. 25-10. He was fabulous. And so all those things stand out to the good. The bad is these turnovers. Dusty said none of this was happening in like their preseason workouts. And of all the coach speak and all the things like you got to take with a grain of salt, and we've mentioned it about other coaches before, Dusty might be the coach I trust the most, right? Like more than what Harbaugh was telling us, more than what Juwan was telling us, more than what Sharon is telling us. If Dusty says something, like, he's pretty genuine. And if he can't answer it, he's going to say he doesn't want to talk about it. And we'll just talk around it. But if he's telling you something, and then and it's what I've not just heard from Dusty, right? But other people who I've spoken with about the program just leading up to the season, about how things have looked. And so there is an urgency to figure out what is going on with these turnovers. I guess the quote unquote good news is 15 of them, which is outrageous, came in the first half. There were just 7 in the second half and overtime. That's more sustainable, but you can't be giving up 25-year possessions, just throwing the ball away. So feels like kind of the things that we talked about coming into the season. How do these bigs look? How are they going to protect the ball? That's told the story through 2 games.
Yep. And we'll have plenty more basketball coverage, including how much the 3-man combo of Yaxel and Morez Johnson and Adai Mara are able to play together. We're gonna get all that stuff like we do for football here down the line, but we're running out of time. So Tony, any final thoughts before we sign off here?
Elliot Cadeau has been good, not great so far, but you can see the upside as a creator. Roddy Gale was actually a team best plus 11 against St. John's. Namari Burnett hasn't even been shooting it well yet, so you feel like, and Michigan still went 8 of 19 for like 40% from three. You feel like he's due for sort of a heater, and I could see it coming in this opener against Oakland. Greg Campion, year $40 million, I think it's like 43 or something, for the Grizzlies as the head coach. They're coming into Ann Arbor. Dusty, this is something like, it's something you've seen like Michigan State do very frequently with Oakland. Tom and Campy are boys, Izzo and Campy are boys. And so now with Dusty, he really wants to do it just because he wants to help the state of basketball. But also he says it's a good chance to get your zone package in. And so, because obviously that's what Oklahoma does, their weird matchup zone. So Michigan's going to get a look at that, and not like last year in an exhibition, but this one when it really counts. So Chrysler Center, 8:30 p.m. The latest home tip of the whole year is Week Boys Game 1 against Oakland on a Monday. Fortunately, that is the bye week. Fortunately for me, for football, we're not going too crazy right away. Although the next week they go to Detroit to play Wake Forest. That is later in the week. We got to go to Chicago for Northwestern. So it is as I say, double dip season, and a football team that's still playing for a Big Ten title, college football playoff, a hoops team that has Final Four aspirations and beyond. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a fun month of November.
All right, man. Good stuff as always. Keep up the great work. Appreciate all the hustle on the beat. Thank you to Robin Chan, who's always flexible with our recording times and everything. Thank you to Nicole Avery Nichols, our editor here at the Free Press. And thank you to our sports editor, Bill Bradley, who helps make it all possible as well. So with that, we'll talk to you guys after the Purdue game in advance of the bye week there. And yeah, we'll have a lot more basketball down the line. It's going to be a fun college basketball season here, along with what's been entertaining college football season. So we're feeling thankful here at Hail Yes, and thankful for everybody who listens. So give us a review if you have time. Make sure you follow, share all the good stuff, and we'll catch you guys next week.